For more than 2 decades, R. Kelly stood at the very top of the music industry. With chart-topping hits, Grammy Awards, and global fame, he was celebrated as one of the most influential R&B artists of all time. His music played on radios, at weddings, and in arenas around the world. To fans, he was a legend. To record labels, he was a guaranteed success. But behind the carefully crafted image of stardom, prosecutors would later argue that R. Kelly was living a double life. One defined by manipulation, exploitation, sexual abuse, and control. What ultimately led to his downfall was not a single accusation or scandal, but a long and disturbing pattern of behavior that stretched back decades. A pattern hidden in plain sight, protected by celebrity status, money, intimidation, and an industry that repeatedly chose profit over accountability. As early as the 1990s, troubling rumors began circulating about R. Kelly's relationships with young girls. Multiple women would later testify that they were teenagers when they first encountered him, often at concerts, shopping malls, or through people connected to his inner circle. According to their accounts, Kelly positioned himself as a mentor, someone who could help launch their music careers or offer them access to fame and opportunity. But once trust was established, prosecutors said the dynamic shifted. The young girls were allegedly isolated from family members, discouraged from contacting friends, and made emotionally dependent on Kelly. Parents reported their daughters suddenly cutting off communication, while Kelly's associates reportedly reassured families that everything was fine. These warning signs were often ignored, dismissed, or overshadowed by his celebrity status. One of the most alarming early incidents involved singer Aaliyah, whom R. Kelly secretly married in 1994 when she was just 15 years old. Though the marriage was later annulled, the event raised serious legal and ethical questions. Yet despite public knowledge of her age, no meaningful accountability followed, and Kelly's career continued without interruption. In 2002, R. Kelly faced criminal charges after a videotape allegedly showing him engaging in sexual acts with a minor became public. The case dragged on for years, marked by delays, witness intimidation allegations, and intense media coverage.
Cheers and jeers greeted R&B singer R. Kelly as he arrived at Cook County Court for jury selection. Kelly faces child pornography charges from a 2002 indictment. Authorities believe they have a videotape showing Kelly having sex with an underage girl about 8 years ago.
When the trial finally concluded in 2008, Kelly was acquitted on all counts. For many observers, the verdict felt like the end of the story. But for prosecutors and survivors, it was only the beginning. Later testimony revealed that the acquittal emboldened Kelly, reinforcing the belief that his fame made him untouchable. According to multiple victims, the abuse did not stop. It expanded, becoming more organized, more controlling, and more dangerous.
We want him prosecuted. We want him in jail. There's a tape of him urinating and having sex with a young girl.
I love R. Kelly and I know he didn't do it. I know that's not him. He's not guilty.
Most of Kelly's supporters were women. Many felt they had to defend his honor and support the singer they love.
He's not guilty at all. They just want to bring him down and kill his image of who he is.
That's right, he's not guilty.
I need to protect him because he's a good man. He's not who people make him seem like he's a monster. He's not guilty.
Both Kelly and the unidentified girl claim they are not the ones in the sex video. The judge has ruled that the video can be shown in open court.
During federal trials years later, survivors described what prosecutors labeled a systematic pattern of abuse and control. Women testified that once inside Kelly's world, nearly every aspect of their lives was dictated. They were allegedly told what to wear, when to eat, when to sleep, and even when they were allowed to use the bathroom. Some said they were forced to ask permission before leaving rooms or speaking to anyone outside Kelly's circle. Several women testified they were financially dependent, with no access to money, phones, or transportation. Others described being coerced into sexual acts, not only with Kelly, but sometimes with other men, acts that prosecutors argued clearly met the legal definition of sex trafficking. Punishments for disobedience allegedly included physical violence, verbal degradation, and isolation. What emerged in court was not the image of a troubled celebrity, but of an organized criminal operation built on fear and silence. For years, many victims remained silent, afraid of retaliation, public humiliation, or not being believed. That silence finally broke in 2019 with the release of the documentary series Surviving R. Kelly. For the first time, survivors spoke publicly and in detail about what they endured. Their stories were emotional, disturbing, and strikingly consistent. The public reaction was immediate. Fans reevaluated Kelly's legacy. Fellow artists distanced themselves. Streaming services removed his music from prominent playlists. Most importantly, law enforcement agencies reopened investigations with renewed urgency. The cultural shift was undeniable. The power that once protected R. Kelly was finally slipping away.
Robert's problem, and this is a thing that goes back many years, is young girls. This was not a secret in November 2000. There were whispers throughout the music community throughout Chicago.
So we're going to focus on the evidence. We're going to fight this case like we fight any other case in the courtroom.
We need to realize that this person is a monster. Stop celebrating this music. Stop celebrating this man.
There's still time for justice for them.
And they're not alone.
Okay.
You're not alone.
Later in 2019, R. Kelly was arrested and charged in federal court. Prosecutors in New York accused him of running a criminal enterprise for decades, using his fame to recruit, groom, exploit, and control women and minors. The charges included racketeering, sex trafficking, forced labor, and sexual exploitation of children. The government argued that Kelly's celebrity was not incidental. It was central to the crimes. Fame was the lure. Fame was the shield. Fame was the weapon.
Federal prosecutors have issued a 13-count indictment against the singer, which also includes enticement of a minor and obstruction of justice charges. Kelly has a decades-long history of abuse allegations, especially of underage girls. He was acquitted in a child porn trial over a decade ago and had maintained a steady fan base and continued to perform.
In 2021, after weeks of testimony from survivors, former employees, and experts, a federal jury found R. Kelly guilty on multiple counts. The courtroom heard firsthand accounts of trauma that spanned decades. Women described losing their childhoods, their autonomy, and years of their lives. In 2022, Kelly was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison, a sentence that effectively ensures he will spend the remainder of his life behind bars. Additional convictions in other jurisdictions followed, reinforcing the scope and severity of his crimes. For survivors, the verdict was not just legal. It was personal. It was proof that they were finally believed.
I didn't do this stuff. This is not me. I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I can't have 30 years.
Robert.
30 years of my career. Y'all trying to kill me. You killing me, man. This is not about music. I'm trying to have a relationship with my kids, and I can't do it. Y'all just don't want to believe the truth. You don't want to believe it.
The fall of R. Kelly forced a long overdue reckoning within the music industry. Executives, collaborators, and institutions were forced to answer difficult questions. How were so many warnings ignored? How did so many people look away? And how many victims suffered because silence was more convenient than truth? The case became a symbol of accountability, not only for one man, but for an entire system that failed to protect the vulnerable. The story of R. Kelly is not about music or celebrity. It is about power abused, voices silenced, and justice delayed. It is a reminder that fame does not equal innocence, and that the cost of ignoring victims is measured in human lives. Justice came late, but when it came, it was undeniable. For decades, the truth existed in fragments, whispered by victims, buried by money, and dismissed by those who chose not to listen. But the voices of survivors never disappeared. They waited for the moment they would finally be heard. This case stands as a warning about what happens when power goes unchecked and silence is mistaken for consent. It reminds us that believing victims matters, and that accountability, no matter how delayed, is essential. If you want more in-depth celebrity crime documentaries, courtroom breakdowns, and true crime stories that center facts and survivor voices, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video, because these stories aren't just about crime. They're about courage, truth, and the consequences of ignoring both.